first plane trip.
Here, stay put.
Move away and keep walking, sir.
Do you hear me?
In Spain, Manel and his wife Julia are driving home. Julia brings up the subject of having children. As Manel has yet to make a decision, she needs clarity to plan for the future. The conversation turns into an argument, and both lose focus. Julia suddenly swerves the car to avoid an oncoming vehicle, but their car ends up in the middle of the road and is hit by a truck, flipping over. A year later, Manel, now a widower, lives alone with his cat. On TV, the news reports that the UN is considering border closures due to a mysterious virus outbreak. Preventative efforts are failing, and people are turning violent at the borders, trying to escape. Deeply depressed, Manel pays little attention and turns off the TV. He doesn't even notice the hospital CCTV footage showing a patient slowly turning into a zombie. Later, Manel goes out driving and sees ambulances passing by. On city walls, graffiti reads, "The end is coming." He arrives at a port to meet two women interested in buying his boat, a boat he hasn't used since Julia died. While searching for the boat's documents, Manel finds Julia's bracelet, triggering bittersweet memories. On his way home, he ignores a call from his sister and stops by a supermarket, where people are panic buying until the shelves are nearly empty. Back at home, Manel ties Julia's bracelet around his cat's neck. He hears on the news that the virus has now spread to Spain. That night, he video calls his sister Belen, who shares urgent news. Her husband, who works for the government, is being relocated to the Canary Islands with their family, and she invites Manel to join them. Manel refuses the offer. The next day, Manel notices that all his neighbors are leaving. He decides to leave too, bringing his cat. On the road, the radio reports that a new virus variant is spreading across Europe, with an incubation period of just a few minutes and transmission via wounds or bites. At the airport, Manel texts Belen, saying he will join them, but as people begin boarding the plane, their tickets are denied with no explanation. A large screen displays an alert that all flights are cancelled, and everyone's phones receive a civil security warning. Panic breaks out, and some try to storm the aircraft. Belen calls Manel and urges him to go home and hide until further notice. Suddenly, a man steals a gun from a security officer and threatens to shoot, sending people fleeing from the airport. All roads and bridges become jammed as people rush to get home. Helicopters fly overhead, and many abandon their cars to run, fighting among themselves. News reports say military personnel have been evacuated, and many soldiers injured in riots. Manel finally leaves his car, takes his cat, and walks home. Back in his neighborhood, Manel sees soldiers surrounding a house and constructing a containment tunnel. Strange sounds come from inside. Two soldiers emerge with a zombie while the wife cries outside, begging them not to take her husband. The zombie is loaded into a military vehicle, and Manel realizes he knows the man. He returns home and falls asleep, dreaming of the crash and Julia's death. The next morning, Belen video calls to say the government is creating safe zones to redistribute the population, but military leaders are divided. The more people they rescue, the greater the risk of spreading the virus. Other countries have already failed. Belen urges Manel to stay home no matter what. Soon, major cities go into total lockdown and reject refugees, sparking chaos. The virus spirals out of control. People now see zombies eating humans in the streets, with some filming the scenes for social media. Others post survival tips and DIY hazmat suit tutorials. That afternoon, the government declares a state of emergency and introduces new restrictions. All commercial activity must stop after 2 p.m., and civilians can be drafted into military service. At the supermarket, Manel sees empty shelves and people stealing from one another. He takes whatever supplies he can carry. On his way home, he stops at a gas station. A wounded police officer arrives and locks the store from inside. Moments later, a group of people run up, screaming for help. Suddenly, a zombie attacks another officer, ripping into his face. Manel prepares to fight with a mop handle. Just as the zombie lunges at him, the wounded officer shoots it, causing its blood to splash on Manel's face. The injured officer begins to turn and slams against the glass from inside. Manel tries to help him, but the officer fires a warning shot, forcing Manel to retreat. After grabbing supplies, Manel leaves. The officer later shoots himself. That night, the president appears on TV to announce an extended lockdown. Anyone refusing military evacuation will face legal consequences. Following online tutorials, Manel reinforces his house, and installs security cameras. One night, the military arrives in his neighborhood to evacuate residents. Belen texts him not to go. She promises to come for him. Manel turns off the lights and hides with his cat. The soldiers try but fail to break in or see him through the windows, then move on. 2 weeks pass. Manel's food starts to run out, and he can't reach Belen due to the signal outage. After much hesitation, he ventures outside with makeshift armor and weapons. He breaks into nearby houses but finds no food, until he enters the home of an elderly woman named Gabriella, who couldn't evacuate due to her wheelchair. Gabriella also has no food but tells Manel which neighbors might have stockpiled supplies. She watched everyone from her window before lockdown. Manel visits every house on Gabriella's list, and eventually finds food and other useful items, including a bicycle. Thanks to the bike, he ventures further out, and brings back a good haul, which he shares with Gabriella. He gives her a walkie-talkie so they can stay in touch while he's out. Now only one house remains unchecked, the house where the military found the zombie. Manel finds no food there, only a fish tank with dead fish. Suddenly, sensing someone behind him, he panics and fires. It turns out to be another human who flees, thinking Manel is a threat. Manel opens one last cabinet, and finally finds more food. Days go by. Manel and Gabriella regularly share meals. One night, Manel gets drunk, and sends Gabriella a voice message, saying he regrets not spending more time with his family. That night, he dreams again of the crash, and remembers being airlifted to the hospital with Julie. He wakes up to Gabriella's voice over the walkie-talkie, urging him to turn on the radio. A voice on the broadcast announces that survivors are being relocated to the Canary Islands, and shares coordinates for a pickup site. Gabriella's skeptical, but Manel insists they're running out of food. The rescuers seem to be at a Rouse estuary, and Manel proposes using his boat to get there. Gabriella refuses, saying she'll only slow him down. Manel swears to protect her no matter what. The next morning, Manel panics when Gabriella doesn't respond. He checks on her and finds she has taken her own life. She left a note thanking him for their time together and urging him to save himself. On his way back, Manel is suddenly attacked by a zombie who knocks away his weapon. After a brutal struggle, Manel kicks the zombie away, and climbs on top of a car. The zombie grabs his leg and tries to bite him, but his protective suit holds. The zombie vomits blood on Manel's face. Manel slams a car door against the zombie's head, trapping it in broken glass. He retrieves his weapon, and shoots the zombie just as it tries to escape. Then he takes the zombie's wallet, and places it on the body, hoping authorities can later identify him. Back home, Manel boils water to clean his weapon, and sends another message to Belen saying he can't wait any longer, though service is still unavailable. Manel rides his bike with his cat, speeding through the empty street. He eventually comes across a roadblock, and has no choice but to head into the woods. There he is chased by zombies, who luckily aren't fast enough to catch him. Some leap at him, so he must stay alert and dodge. He comes upon an abandoned campsite, and fears what he might find, but there is no other way. As he crosses through it, a group of zombie campers emerges. Manel pedals faster, dodging them, and avoiding scattered equipment. He makes it out without getting bitten, and returns to the main road, only to find a pile of corpses blocking his way. He's going too fast to stop in time and crashes. Thankfully his cat remains safe inside its carriage. Hearing the zombies approach, Manel tries to restart his bike but fails, so he's forced to run. He sprints through the forest as zombies chase him. Finally he reaches a port, and crosses a bridge, closing a gate behind him. The zombies begin banging on the glass until it shatters, but by then, Manel has already closed a second, sturdier gate, and escapes. At first, Manel loses hope, because all the boats in the harbor are gone, but after searching, he finds an old boat left floating out in the water. He swims to it, and tries to start the engine, but it won't turn on. That's when he hears a noise and opens a door to find a zombie baby strapped to a seat. Manel and his cat then leave on a small raft. He tries to reach the place mentioned on the radio, but it's already destroyed. As he sails far from land, he never gets a signal, but continues to record messages for his sister. That night, the raft stops moving. When Manel checks the engine, he finds a corpse stuck in it. At that moment, he sees a bright light approaching. He waves and yells for help. It turns out to be a boat with several Ukrainian men who agree to let him on board. Manel and his cat are brought onto a large ship, and given food. The only man who speaks Spanish is Victor, who explains that the Canary Islands have been quarantined, and the police aren't allowing rescued survivors to disembark, hence the many zombies on land. Manel is given a room after promising to help gather supplies the next. In the middle of the night, he hears voices and looks out the window to see a group of survivors on a small boat, begging for help. The next morning, he asks about them, but Victor insists no one can. Manel is then called to the captain's room to help identify important locations on a map, like hospitals and factories. Later, he sees the very same small boat from the night before aboard the large ship, along with the survivors' belongings. When questioned, Victor refuses to explain. Because Victor is a pilot, Manel tells him about a helicopter location, but Victor warns him to stay out of it. That night, Manel sneaks out with his belongings and hides his cat in a bag. In the lower deck of the ship, he finds 2 survivors tied. He quickly frees the first man, but as he stands, a guard shoots him. Just then, Victor arrives and fights the guard. They struggle over the gun until it goes off, damaging nearby supplies. The 2 men continue to fight until Victor strangles the guard to death with a rope. Now also wanting to escape, Victor agrees to find the helicopter. Manel, Victor, and the other survivor sneak onto a small boat. As they're about to leave, 2 guards appear and open fire, killing the survivor. Victor returns fire and is hit in the shoulder while Manel speeds up. They reach the mainland, and Manel helps Victor walk. They find some cars and a zombie trapped inside one. Manel quickly kills it with the cat. They drive to the hospital where Julia died. Because Manel remembers there's a helicopter on the way, Victor reveals that the ship's captain is a monster who created a shelter on an island. Only those who serve him are allowed to stay, and all women and children are taken for his pleasure. When they arrive, Manel is devastated to find the helicopter gone. Suddenly, a zombie jumps on the car. Manel drives erratically to shake it off, then uses Victor's gun to shoot it, drawing more zombies. He fires at them too. They enter the hospital, and Manel searches for tools to extract the bullet from Victor's shoulder. He hears noises from downstairs and goes up. He sees zombies walking by and hides. The sounds actually come from the vents, and Manel starts talking to the people inside, until a zombie ambushes him from behind. He pushes it, and shoots, but more zombies break through the door. Manel runs back to the original room and locks the door, but Victor and the cat are gone. Suddenly, a sliding door opens and Lucia calls for him. They close the door just before zombies enter. Manel is taken to a treatment room, where Nurse Lucia and Sister Cecilia are caring for Victor, the cat, and 3 young children. They stabilize Victor. When Manel mentions the helicopter, Lucia explains it's parked behind the hospital, in a quarantine zone full of zombies. That night, they share some food with Manel, who mourns his wife. He visits the room where she died, and remembers her final moments. He removes the bracelet from the cat, and ties it to Julia's hospital bed. The next morning, Manel climbs to the roof, and finally gets a signal. He receives all the messages from Berlin that were sent over the past weeks. As he records a reply, he hears gunfire from the rooftop. He sees the ship's crew shooting zombies to break into the hospital. He rushes to warn the group. They decide to use the basement to reach the helicopter. The basement is filled with bodies and smoke, so they cover their noses and mouths. The door is stuck, and must be broken open with an axe. A zombie appears and bites Cecilia. Manel pulls it off, and burns its face on a hot pipe, before Lucia kills it with the axe. Now infected, Cecilia tells them to continue without her. They reach a hallway, and see zombies behind some furniture. Lucia opens the door quietly, but a child speaks up, after seeing his zombified mother. Luckily, they go unnoticed and move forward. Then, a shelf falls, making a loud noise. Zombies approach. Manel hides with the child in a cabinet, while the others take cover behind a door. Zombies begin banging on the cabinet. Just when things seem hopeless, the ship crew arrives, and starts shooting. After a brief search, they leave, failing to find any. The group now reaches the final door and sees many zombies outside. Manel, recalling an online tutorial, ties together several cages to use as a shield while crossing the yard. At first it works, but when a wheel gets stuck, the noise attracts zombies. Lucia uses her axe, and Manel a fire extinguisher to hold them off while Victor pushes. With great effort, they reach the gate. Lucia breaks the chain with her axe, and stays with Manel to fight the zombies, while Victor takes the children to the helicopter. After pushing hard, Lucia and Manel manage to close the gate, and tie it with a scarf before running to catch up. Victor tries to start the helicopter, but fails. Zombies begin climbing the fence, so Manel goes out to fight. Just then, Victor finds a disconnected cable and quickly plugs it. The helicopter starts. The noise draws the ship's crew, who arrive and start shooting zombies. They cut the scarf on the gate, and threaten to shoot, unless the group surrenders. Victor signals Manel, who opens the second gate. A new horde of zombies rushes in, and quickly overpowers the crew. As some zombies approach the helicopter, Victor hovers it to knock them off. Manel slashes through zombies with an axe, to clear the path. The helicopter is about to take off, but after all zombies are gone, Lucia throws down a ladder. Manel climbs up, and is reunited with his friends and his cat. Hours later,
The helicopter nears the Canary Islands. Manel receives a call from Belen, who tells him not to come. 2 fighter jets pass by, signaling that the islands are now infected too.